This podcast is brought to you by On Track Studio.
Hi and welcome to the MBC podcast. Today we are talking to Nat Saunders. Now, many of you know Nat from her first birth story with us. She told her story back in episode 41 about her first birth experience that was a natural posterior birth. So many of you mamas absolutely loved that birth story. She was 38 weeks pregnant with her second babe at the time of telling that story. So here we are, probably about 9 months later, with 9-month-old Winnie in the background telling Nat's amazing story with her throughout her pregnancy, her birth and her postpartum. Now, surprisingly to some, not to me, this pregnancy and birth experience was very different to Nat's first, and that's actually really quite common. And we talked about a lot, which I really, really loved. Nat wanted to change 3 things about her first pregnancy and birth experience to this time. So 1, she wanted to work on her pelvic floor. 2, she wanted to minimize pelvic girdle pain. And 3 is she wanted to optimize baby's position as much as she could. She had accepted that she probably would have another posterior birth, but she wanted to optimize it as much as she could so that we could 1, avoid it, or 2, make the posterior labor as quick and easeful as possible second time round. And she tells all the tips on how she did all of those things, and it's such great advice. And I'm not going to tell you whether she ended up having a second posterior labor or not. You will have to listen to the podcast to find out. I hope you enjoy it. I know you will enjoy, because Nat's an absolute freaking legend, and I can't wait for you to listen. Talk to you soon. Also, little disclosure, Winnie is in the background, and as you can imagine, she's an absolute legend for the vast majority of the podcast, but by the end of an hour podcast where she's just walking around trying to entertain herself, she does get a touch whingy. So just a heads up, you'll probably hear her in the background, especially towards the end. Thank you so much for jumping on the potty, Nat.
Thanks for having me back.
My pleasure. Actually, I should have looked at what number your number 1 was. You didn't remember it all, did you?
It's in the 30s, but I don't know.
It's in the 30s. Okay, yep. Nat Saunders' birth story. You can listen to her first birth with Patty. And here we are with little Winnie in front of us. You were, 38 weeks recording the first birth story, hey?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Just weeks off meeting Winnie. And
how exciting.
Yeah, I didn't know if we were having a boy or girl, but it's like, yeah, she was meant to be here.
So good. So good. And now, it took us like only 9 months to get back to it, but here we are telling our story.
I can't believe it's been 9 months. That's
it's crazy.
The quickest 9 months of my life.
I know what you mean. Amazing. So as a bit of a quick recap, I know lots of people are super interested in your first birth story for the fact that you had a positive posterior birth experience. And lots of people feel scared about posterior births and have all these, negative thoughts about posterior births. And I always send them to your podcast with that thought, because as we know, posterior births can be a super natural, normal thing that we're able to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And babies can choose to be in that position. So I know I was on the edge of my seat finding out how the heck was Winnie born, and was it posterior, was it not? Because I know we were definitely under the impression that that's just the way that your pelvis is shaped and your babies are going to come out posterior, and you had accepted that kind of foreboding of the posterior birth experience once again. So what happened with your second pregnancy and birth experience?
Do you want me to start?
I can start from the start. Yeah.
Conception or...
Yeah.
So about, I think Patty turned 1 and Paul's like, let's go. And I was a little bit like, I think I just finished breastfeeding about 11 months and I was back playing basketball. So I was really just enjoying my freedom.
Yes.
Being really fit again, enjoying life. So I was a little bit like, slow down. But I think from there we maybe stopped being careful.
Yeah.
And then I'm not that I'm either like in or not. So I was kind of like, after a month or 2 of not being careful, I was like, no, I need if we're doing it, let's do it properly. So I started tracking, and I think my cycles have been a lot more regular since my cycle returned. So they're back to kind of being that 27, 28 days.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. It's
more regular than before Patty.
Yeah. So
fascinating.
They just, I don't know, my body had a full reset. So I was a little bit more, I kind of knew when I was ovulating more, and it was easier to track. So we tracked for a couple of months. Classic went on that holiday to Fiji, nice and relaxed. And then that month, when we got back, we found out we were pregnant again. So
good.
Yeah, that was really exciting. We were really lucky. It didn't took maybe 2 or 3 months. So
yeah,
really excited. So I think Patty would have been about 14, 15 months when I fell pregnant again.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's good timing.
Yeah, it was. And funnily, I think I said in my last, we were like, 2-year age gap would be really good.
Yes.
And then when I went to the doctor, she's like, your due date's the 23rd of June. I was like, oh no, that's my son's birthday.
Bang on 2 years.
Yeah. I was like, it must mean something, the 23rd. So.
Yes. Amazing.
And
fantastic.
Then, do you want me to go into pregnancy?
I think so.
I was a lot sicker. So with Patty, I didn't have any morning sickness or I wasn't nauseous, no food aversion. So that was a huge shock this time around. I was just like, whoa, this is what people talk about.
Yeah, that's actually quite shocking you didn't have that with Patty because...
now I know she's a girl, maybe.
Interesting.
So around that time, I was like, maybe it is a girl because I feel a lot different. Couldn't eat meat, couldn't eat salads, just... I was
bread and potato.
I was gross. Like every day at work, I was like, I can't eat the salad or the lunch I packed and go out and get something else. But luckily, that was all over about 11 weeks. So I was kind of come good. And then I think pregnancy-wise, apart from that, was pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Around, I think it was 30 weeks, I actually had a tiny bit of spotting. And it was really like a brown blood. So the girls were not too worried. They're like, that's old. It was tiny. So they'll kind of like obviously keep monitoring, but you don't need to come in and see us. We're pretty, she's like, baby's moving, felt okay. Otherwise, no cramps.
Yeah.
And then again at 34 weeks, I had more, but it was like red, fresh blood. So they're like, okay, no, you've got to come up to the day assessment unit.
Yeah.
Because I was in the MGP. And so, they did an internal scan and they found I had I can't remember the term, like the correct term, but it's like a lesion in your cervix.
A lesion in the cervix?
Like on the outside.
Interesting.
Do you know the name of it?
No, I don't. Sorry, yeah.
I'll text you maybe.
Yeah.
So they were saying that was best case scenario because if it was like external bleeding and they knew what it was, it was all good. Like nothing was going to harm the baby or anything. So it was lucky it was that. But if
how did they figure that out?
So they did a spec and I think they could see it and they were like, woohoo, that's what it is. Because otherwise they would have said, if they didn't know what it was, they would have had to stay in for 24 hours and be monitored and it's a bit scary.
Was it triggered by sex or was it random?
That one was random, yeah.
Interesting.
So I like wiped and I was like, oh my God, there's blood. And then because I was 34 weeks, I was like, oh no, is this my show? That's actually what I thought.
Yes.
So you're a little bit like, 34 weeks is a bit too early. But also good outcomes and stuff too. So it was a bit of a scare because I didn't have anything like that in my first. So
yes.
But they just kind of like take it easy and sent me home. And I didn't have any other, like even though it was there, it never popped up again. So I was really lucky.
Fantastic.
So that was our only little kind of hurdle.
Yeah. What did you do in regards to birth prep this time and like thinking about your first birth, like in reflection, what were you doing this time?
So when I found out I was pregnant again, the two biggest things on my mind was my managing pelvic girdle pain.
Yes.
Yeah, because that bothered me probably from halfway till the end. Mm-hmm. And the second big thing was I worked really hard to get my pelvic floor back to being really strong, so I just wanted to maintain that as well. Good. For pregnancy, knowing that I'd have like a big bulb and placenta and the fluid all putting pressure back on it and post-birth. So they were two of my biggest focuses.
Legend.
So for all of it, I started really early. I went to Reformer Pilates pretty much at 11 weeks once I could get myself together again.
Yes.
I was like, okay, I'm here. So I did some just normal Reformer because for a while before you've got a big bump, you can do that.
Yeah.
And I noticed that helped heaps with my pelvic girdle pain and also, keeping my pelvic floor, core, glutes, everything really strong.
Yeah.
So I just managed to keep doing that. That actually helped me through my whole pregnancy.
So good.
And then I went back to my pelvic floor physio at, I think, 16 weeks. They like to see in your second trimester. And she was so, because I hadn't seen her since like 4 months post-Patty, so she was so surprised and happy with how well I'd done and how like good it was feeling. And
so good.
Yeah, she was just like, I was probably more proactive maintaining my pelvic floor exercises during pregnancy and things like that.
Good on you. Gosh, isn't it crazy what we will do for our babies when we don't do it for ourselves?
Oh, yeah.
You know, like all of a sudden you fall pregnant, you take all the supplements, you do all the pelvic floor, we do yoga 3 times a week. But then as soon as it's not for the baby, or even breastfeeding, women will go on the best diets ever. Yeah. Like so cutting out gluten and stuff because it's affecting their baby. But then we're like covered in pimples and bloated and shit like that. And we're like, I can't be bothered.
So true. We'll do anything for them, wouldn't you? So they were, the 2 big focuses. And then I come along, what was it, about 24 weeks? So I
reckon so.
I go back into yoga, and I think I've said this online somewhere else, but I think we'd been really busy socially, and I was just like, can't figure out how I'm going to fit it in with a toddler and work. And then I just come along one Sunday. I was like, no, I'm coming with my friend Reed, and I was just like, this was so good for me mentally more than physically.
So good.
I loved it. And then, I was there every Sunday until Winnie come. Even 40 plus 2, I was there.
You were too.
And I used to admire all the 40 plus 4 mums that were still there. I was like, there's just no way I would be here at 40 plus weeks. Look at them.
And then you started at 42 weeks like, yep, I am postpartum.
Yeah, you got to keep it going. You got to keep your routine.
So good. You are so good at making it a routine, and I just think that's the most important thing with whatever your birth prep is. Making it into your routine and habit is amazing.
Yeah. So I think
way to stay diligent.
Yeah, and just coming and like seeing, you get to know the mums that are around, due around the same time. So it's nice to see everyone, and everyone's growing bellies every week and things that pop up. There's always a good chat at the end. To know you're not alone, and have a good support. Of people doing the exact same thing at the exact same time, or lots of other mums, and it's their second pregnancies with toddlers, and the challenges that it has as well. So loved it.
So the community aspect was the thing that you're talking about, like mentally, was so helpful.
So helpful. And then I think I've also mentioned this, but just the connection with the baby and like slowing down and breathing and just being able to feel them and, start to actually think about my birth. That was another big thing for me because I'd kind of not ignored it, but I just hadn't had time to really think about it. I don't know if that was like a privilege because my first birth was positive. But I did, I needed to get my head back in the game and start really thinking about it. So coming along to yoga was exactly what I needed.
So good.
Because your Sundays were around birth preparation.
Yeah.
So even some of the classes you're like, even though I feel like I'm a bit early for this, by the time you got closer to 40 weeks, you'd done it 2 or 3 times. So you're like really thinking about it, and it was really sinking in. Yes.
For those that don't know, Nat's talking about it's like a 6-week rotation. So we do like labour prep classes, which are probably the ones that you were like, fuck, I'm like 20 weeks. This is so early. But as you say, by the time you got to the end of your pregnancy, you've done it a couple of times. And it's just, it amazes me when you guys come just 1 class a week consistently is enough to like do what you got to do.
Well, it was funny. You know how I was like at 24 weeks dying and watching all these 40-week women kill it? I was like, I'm dying. But just once a week consistently, I was like got stronger as I went. Yes. Even though I was getting bigger, I was way more capable by the end because it was, just part of the routine. And, I couldn't believe it.
Incredible. Actually. Hey, incredible. Yeah. So what were you thinking with so you were talking about thinking about the birth and connecting with Winnie. Mm-hmm. What were you thinking you wanted to do differently with this birth experience or not even different, but what were you kind of processing?
I think for me it was like, I think before I'd seen you, I always wondered if I'd had a posterior birth, but I'd never been told it yes or no. Yes. So I think just chatting to you, I was like, I definitely have one. So just processing that a bit more and then kind of getting my head around the fact that I might have another one. Mm-hmm. And I felt because I'd done it before, I could do it again. I wasn't scared of it, but I thought there was probably maybe some things I could have done differently this time to not prevent it, but help the baby get into a better position if they could. Open my pelvis and hips and body a bit more, be a bit more diligent with like sitting positions, stretching. So although I was kind of accepting it'll be what it'll be, I was trying to do things to help baby be in a better position this time.
So good.
Yeah.
Love that.
But I just, as I went to you, I think we were talking about posterior births and how people's pelvises are just different, and just learning that and just kind of more accepting. You're like, oh, that's just maybe not what I did. It was just how I am.
Absolutely.
And like I said, I've done it before. The baby got there in the end. So there's going to be more room, hopefully. So even if they are posterior, hopefully it's a bit quicker.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So they were my thoughts and processes. So
perfect.
Yeah.
So how did the birth end up playing out in the end?
What happened? So I got to yoga at 40+2 with no signs again.
Yes.
Because Patty's birthday, so I'll rewind a bit. I think I was 40+6 and I had 39+6, had my 40-week check. And again, I was a bit like, I'm so curious. Has anything happened? She's like,
I do remember that, yeah.
And she was like, what do you want me to do? She's like, I can check. We can leave it. She's like, it's your son's birthday tomorrow. Are you sure you want me to check? And I was like, curiosity's getting the better of me again. So she was like, I was with Sarah White at this stage, and she was just like, okay, we can check. She's like, if things look like they're ready to go, I can give you a stretch and sleep, but if it's not, I'm not going to touch it. And I was fully just like, yes.
Yeah.
You're the expert. Yeah. Whatever you think, I'm happy with. And she was like, your cervix is soft but not like fully dilated. She's like, I'm not touching it. We're just going to leave it. And I was like, that's fine. The next day, was just plotting around sea life with Paddy.
Yes.
For his birthday. We had a really nice day with him. Still really calm. Just happy to not have them born on the same day, I think. I really was.
Yes.
He enjoyed his day. And then what happened the next day? I think that's when I was like, okay. I've been so calm, but I think I'm ready to not be pregnant now.
Yeah.
And then I think I had in my head, I think I booked that 40+2 yoga and I was just like, I better not be there. But I was. And I think it helped because tomorrow I was in the same position. We were both like 40+. Still there. A few other people had all had their babies, but we had each other.
Yes.
And both of us.
Oh my gosh, actually. Yes, sorry, continue. I remembered something just now.
Oh, do you want to?
You say.
Oh, well, I just remember we were both just huffing and puffing and like everything was so uncomfortable. I was just like, there is a head right there. Like I had not felt uncomfortable in pregnancy until that one. Just everything was an effort. Just breathing was an effort.
I remember that exact class. I think it was even a Wednesday that you guys had booked as like an extra, and you were both in the front row, and just the whole class I was like, fuck, they are not having a good time right now. Every lunge you were like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Even Savasana and just breathing. I was just like, oh.
It was so funny.
And then, so I went home that night and I had, obviously, yoga felt very different. And then I felt like really, not agitated, just tingly. I can't really, it was like pins and needly, tingly, really light through my whole body. I was laying on the floor putting Paddy to sleep and I just felt different. And then that night I started having some contractions. Yeah, like very early labour period cramping, probably like 15 minutes apart. It was really cold. It was dark. It was 3 a.m. and I was like, I'm not getting up until I have to. Anyway, fell asleep, woke up, nothing. I was like, okay. That was just like, I think my body's warming up. Then that night, I think I lost my, what is it? Mucus plug.
Yes.
Yeah, so that was 40+3 at this stage. Oh,
shit.
Good find.
It's like, I feel like she's chewing on something, but it looks like there's nothing in her hand.
Oh, my goodness.
Anyways,
all
that
right.
was off the camera. Good day.
I said she'd be a menace.
Oh, you know when you just see like the potential flash before your eyes and you're like, thank fuck, that didn't just
Yeah,
happen.
you just have to let it go over and never think about it.
You do, don't you? Okay.
Can't
All
ponder
right, I
these
got to learn
things.
that from the mama. Let's move on with our lives.
So I'm like, yeah, whatever. Mucus plug. I think I was in the bath and it came out, like the whole thing. It was crazy.
Hectic.
Yeah,
In the bath at home? Mm-hmm. Ah. And this is early hours of the morning.
had the early labour that night, had a full day, nothing. I went to acupuncture. She's kind of like, I was trying to rest and relax, but I just felt so agitated. Like I couldn't even concentrate on my favourite fun shows.
Yes.
Just laying in bed. Patty was at daycare. So I booked into acupuncture. I was like, I need to just chill out. And that really helped. Like they just helped me just like,
so
relax.
Good.
Then that night, I had my show in the bath, which was very visual. It's crazy.
Just like a massive oyster coming out.
Yeah. And then that night, again, I had contractions, like really early labour, and they were a bit closer together and a bit more painful. Lasted probably 3 hours, and then again I fell asleep and woke up and I was like, And in the meantime, I'd had like a bit of, because I'd lost my show, like a bit of blood.
Yeah.
And I had that with Patty as well, but I'd called Sarah because I think I'd told them I'd had all these like false starts, and so they were ready to go.
Yes.
And I called her. She's like, is it happening? I was like, no, but I've had like a bit of blood. And she was like, you know what, why don't you come in and we'll just make sure it's not your waters.
Yeah.
They weren't really sure what it was. So we're like, okay. She's like, just if it is your waters, things are going to look it's going to look different. So then we packed our bag, got Patty to daycare. I'm like 40+4, still got him on my hip walking in. And the contractions started coming back, and I was like, oh, no, they're still around. And she's like, yeah, come up anyway.
Yeah.
So walking into the hospital, I was like, okay, they're like good 5-10 minutes apart now. And she checked me, and she's like, wasn't your waters. You're about 3 centimetres dilated.
Oh.
She's like, do you want a good stretch and sleep? I'm like, well, let's go. I've had 2 nights of like waiting, interrupted sleep. I'm like, I'm ready. She's like, okay. So I think this will get everything going. And I don't know if you know from last time, it really worked.
Yes.
That set me off last time, so I'm all for them. They helped me. So, she did one, and I was like, okay. She's like, go for a big walk, get a coffee, and then like settle in at home. So we did that. We went down to Cardi's. I was like on the rocks and stuff.
So good.
And at this point I was like, these are hurting. Paul's like, should we turn back? I'm like, nope.
Oh my gosh, that's fantastic.
And then
that would be great rock hopping for like the pelvis and changing the shape and stuff like that.
And I think when you're really ready, you're just like, let's bring it on.
Yes.
I was excited. Paul's watching me. He's just like, we're so far from the car. Should we turn back? And we're on the uneven sand and everything. I was like, yeah, let's go.
Yes.
And then we got home. I just was on the birth bowl. I randomly watched Bridesmaids, which was like the funniest.
The movie?
Yeah.
That's a good oxytocin.
Yeah, I was just like, and at that point I put my TENS on, so I was just like bouncing.
So good.
And the whole day they were just these 5 minutes apart. And I was on the phone to Sarah on and off, and she's like, get behind the couch and do your deep squats. So I was doing like lots of that.
So good.
I also should mention, because I was trying to get Bubs on the left hand, the left side, because Patty was on the right side and really tucked in there through my pregnancy, and that's why we think he went the whole way around.
Definitely.
Whereas Winnie, when she was in there, was still changing day to day, and I think she just had a bit more room. And so, even up until labour, like, they were checking me and they're like, oh, she's kind of at the back, she's on the side, she's on the left. So even through all those labour and contractions when I was laying in bed, I was just laying on my left. Like, I didn't move. I was just like, just trying to use gravity. Like, stay there.
Good
so
job.
same kind of thing when I was in labour on the birth ball, would lay down on my left, doing my big, deep open squats. Just cruising at home, 5 minutes apart. They stayed like that for ages. The whole time I'm like, I'm just in early labour. Like, these aren't painful.
Yeah.
Popped my TENS on. Loved it. Like, absolutely loved it.
Amazing.
I think with Patty's birth, a lot of my labour, I think once I got to active labour, like I said, I couldn't do any positions. Like, I was leant over on a bench. Yes. That's all I could do. This one, I could sway, I could move, I could squat, I could breathe, I could use my TENS. I was just had all the tools.
Yeah.
And they were just working for me. And then they got to 4 o'clock and Paul's like, all right, I'll go get Patty. I was like, okay, well, I'm still like 5 minutes apart. Daycare's like 2 seconds away.
Ah, okay.
he left and come back and I was like, oh, they're like 2 minutes, 1 minute apart. He's like, what? And I was like, yeah, but look at me. I'm talking. I'm so relaxed. Like, remember last time? Like,
Yeah.
I was like, I feel like I'm still in early labour. I don't know what's going on. And I think, like I said, in my first birth, my contractions were never that, like, perfect.
Yes.
1 on, 3 minute break. The same, just my body.
Yes.
So in my head, I was like, I'm still in early labour. Don't think this is it. Called Sarah.
Pause 1 second.
Winnie.
There we go.
Okay.
Sorry, we're back.
Yeah, so I think now I know my body just doesn't do the perfect contractions.
Yes.
Again, they were very much like, 3, 5, 3, 5. Random breaks in between, random intensities as well.
Yes.
So, I was kind of like still in my head. I'm just like, this cannot be it. Like 1 to 2 minutes apart. Paddy got home from daycare. It was so weird. Like he just was such a good little boy, just chilling, like watching TV, having dinner with Paul. And I'll just like leave the room, have a contraction, then like come in.
Yes.
Just, I don't know if he was... I think, like, maybe I was waiting for him to get home and I knew he was safe.
Yeah.
Paul's sister got home from work at about 5:30. I was on the phone to the Sarahs and I'm like, look, they're 1 to 2 minutes apart, but I'm talking to you. I feel really good. I just don't know if this is it or not.
Yeah.
And we all made the executive decision. We're like, even if I get there, at least I'm there early rather than late. And if I'm there all night, I'm there all night.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? Hey. So then, got about to get in the car and then I just had like a really strong one. I was like, ooh. And that's when I was like, okay, I'm ready to go now. Like I want to be there.
Oh.
And I sat in the back and I like could lean over. I think we still had the car seat in for her. So I was like leaning over the car seat.
Yes.
And Paul's like, oh my God, this car is so much more chill than last time. I was like, I know, I don't think I should be going. And I should mention once I got into the car, I think because it was a change of scenery and position, like I didn't have a contraction for a while and I was like, oh, it's already stalled.
Yes.
Like I was a little bit like this, my fears.
So classic.
Yeah. And the whole time I was just doubting whether I should even be going in. And I was just like, they've slowed down. He's just like, this is so much more relaxing. What's your pain? I was like, probably like 5 out of 10, like just so different.
Paul's just having the best time. He's like, he's just so much easier than last time.
So chill. Got to the car park and because Sarah White was on call, so she got there right at the same time. We just like walked in and I just had, when I was talking to her, I was like, again in my head, just like, oh, this is not, I just have called it way too early. And then we got
hard to know.
I know, but then at the same time, I had like 15 contractions by the time I got to check in.
Oh my God.
Checked in myself, just chatting. They were like, you seem in good spirits. And I was like, yeah, last time I like couldn't look at anyone. I was just like, get me in a room. And last time I think it was super busy. This time I was like, there was only me and another lady. So all the staff, like everyone's just there and so quiet, very relaxed.
Amazing.
Got into the room and then... so this is at 6:20. Finally got in the room and a lady was trying to take my blood pressure and I was just like, oh my God, don't touch me. Like I was just like, oh my God.
Oh.
And I was like, it's on. These are so intense. Still all in my front. And then...
Interesting.
Yeah, they were just trying to take my blood pressure and they were just coming, like just flowing. And all of a sudden Paul was just like... And I went from being so calm to just being like, oh no. Like all the thoughts flood back to you and you're just like... Oh, no, this is so painful. But, again, none of it was in my back. And...
Interesting.
Yeah, the girls were like, okay, Nat, we've started filling the bath up earlier for you. Do you want to get in? And I just had such a good flow. I had my tens on. I was, like, stomping my feet. Sarah was so good. She was just, like, counting me in and out of the contractions. And her tip, she's like, lean into it. So every time I would breathe... Like I'd squat down, like doing the big deep breaths out and just like helping the baby move down.
Oh my God.
Instead of being like really tense and fighting it, I was just like fully leaning, pushing. Not pushing, just like breathing, helping my pelvis stay open.
But it's like this descending, it sounds silly, but this descending energy, this descending motion
my breath
that
went,
you're intending.
She's like, breathe into it.
Yes.
Don't fight it. Squat when you're doing it. Yes. So I had this like really good rhythm. for like 5 minutes.
Yes.
She's like, you said you really wanted a water birth, and I'm like, I cannot take these TENS off. Like, and I just was in between, just like pacing around the room, just moving, coping. So if I take all this off, I just feel like I'd be stuck, and I think I'm a non-land birther. That's what I've decided.
Good on you.
I feel really grounded and can use my tools. Oh, and I had the birth comb from your workshop.
Yes.
So I'd put that in my palm kind of when I got in the car.
Oh, that's right. You did the How to Cope with Pain and Labour workshop.
Yes, and the comb, the TENS and the comb, best thing ever.
Best thing.
Best thing. Anyway, we just got there. I was like full clothed, just on the other side of this bed. Paul's like just getting the music out. Yes. And Sarah's like, Nat, you need to take your pants off. And I was like, I just got here kind of thing. Yes, I just got here. And she's like, no, like that baby's coming. And then like.
How did she know that? What made her think that?
Just by watching and looking at me.
Midwifery wisdom.
Never had a vaginal check again.
Amazing.
She pretty much like, she's like, come on, like, we're going to cut him off, like, get him off. She's like, come around on this side of the bed. We need room. She's like, do you want to stay standing? I'm like, yeah, I felt more comfortable standing last time. So they just lifted the bed quickly. All of a sudden, my clothes are off. Can't remember that bit. And she's just looked and she's like, there's the head.
How long had you been at the hospital at this point?
I think 15 minutes.
Oh, my gosh.
And then...
And did this... Because that... Sorry, pardon me. Go on.
Oh, no.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so 15 minutes probably at this stage before the pushing, she saw the head and she's like, okay, like, she said to me, she's going to be here in 10 minutes. And me and Paul were both like, there's no, like, as if. Maybe second birth. Yeah, I think with Patty, I had to push with everything I had. With this one, my body just fully did it.
Isn't that amazing?
She came out, so I think it was 3 pushes. So I had that really nice position. Standing, I internally rotated my legs, as we talked about, lots to do. So one was her coming down. The second, I had to help her head come out.
Yes.
So I remember pushing for that bit. But the one before, I was she's like, oh, it looks like you're holding back. And I was like, I think if I help her, like, I don't want to tear and I think she'll come out all in once. Like, it's so strong. I was a little bit like, trying to slow her down. Yes.
You could feel the contraction pushing her down without you
I wasn't pushing.
Down.
I was more like, I need to slow you down.
Wow.
Then the next one was her head. So she's like, I gave that one a push and her head came out. And then the third one, she came out pretty much nearly in her sack because my waters hadn't broken.
Oh, my gosh.
So her waters broke when she was like, pushed out all at once.
When her head came out, was it still in the sack?
No, that's when it had.
That's when it broke. Oh, my gosh. That's incredible.
And it's funny because Paddy was the exact same. His waters didn't. My waters didn't go until I think she checked and that like popped. There might have been leaking, but that like popped it. So
you must have a tough membrane.
I'd be so shocked if my waters broke if we ever had a third. Like, because it's never happened for me that way.
Oh my god!
And funnily enough, all the my show happened. It all has sequentially been very similar, both births.
Yes.
So my body must how it does it, and then. Yeah, she was here in like 3 pushes. And then I just remember because it was so quick, I just like collapsed on the bed, like 10's still on boost.
Yes.
She just, the girls caught her and Paul was on the other side of me. He was just like rubbing my head and just being there. But now I've had 2, I'm a very independent labour woman. Like,
yes.
I just like my own space.
Yes.
No words.
Yes.
Own room, own shower. He's like, can I do anything? I'm like, nah.
Nah.
I'm good. Like,
you don't want to be touched or massaged or anything.
He gave me, towards the end, he was giving me some big hip squeezes just so I could take my focus off it. Like, had the TENS, had the comb, had that.
And the hip squeezes, as you know, are really great for opening that outlet for the pushing phase as well. Yeah.
At the time, though, I think I was in transition, so nothing was really... working, but I think it was good for him to have like a role and just another distraction for me. So
yes,
he was very good. He's always very calm, Paul. Like he's just
good man.
Yeah, keeps the calm. I'm going to stand up because she's being a bit of a menace. as long as you can still hear me.
Yes, no drama.
She came out, no issues, heard her cry straight away. And I just remember being like face down on the bed. They're like, excuse me, excuse me, we need to pass you your baby. And I was like, oh my God, that was so fast. That's so fast.
I just cackled into the microphone. I'm sorry. That was just the cutest little...
You're a bit cute. And then, so I'm just kind of like, they're passing her through me and we didn't know what it was. And, her, cord was over her genitals. So we're just, turned and we're like, oh, my God, it's a little girl.
Oh, was that the best feeling?
Yeah, I think at the start, because I was sicker. Are you waving? Waving to the camera. So at the start, I thought it was a girl because I was a lot sicker. I was different. And then once I got to 20 weeks, I was like, I feel exactly the same. So I was like, convinced myself I was going to be a boy mum. I'd always thought I was going to be a boy mum.
Yeah.
Was happy to be Patty have a brother. So it was actually a really nice surprise. But when she got here, I was like, I knew you were a girl. And then I don't know if I really wanted one. So you convince yourself.
Yes.
You don't care.
Yes.
Anyway, she was a girl and it was so special. We've got our little girl. A lot of our friends have had boys. A lot of my cousins have had boys. So, you're like, hello. And she was nearly the same size as Patty, just a little bit smaller. So,
oh, my God.
She was 150 grams smaller. She was 3.6 and 53 centimetres. So, she was a little bit smaller.
Yes.
So, they passed her to me and I was like, can someone take my tens off? If it's still
yes.
And poor Paul's trying to peel the sticky bits off and he's getting electrocuted. So I was like, once that was off me, because I was right at the bed, I just climbed on the bed with her, was just cuddling her, was just in complete shock, didn't cry again. I think A, girl, B, just how fast it all happened.
Yes.
Just happy, just could not believe how I'd hate to say it, but it felt so easy.
Oh, my God.
And I think that's only because my comparison from a posterior birth to that is just, she definitely wasn't posterior.
Because I was going to say that. Do you reckon that was the difference?
Yeah.
That wasn't posterior.
And I think mainly because you can use your tools. You can, with an anterior birth, I could move, I could squat, I could bend, I could sway, I could breathe. I wasn't overcome by fight or flight to get through a posterior pain birth. That was the biggest difference. And then the pain is seriously, I can't even describe the difference probably. Well, for example, every contraction I'd spew was that painful.
Yes.
Verse. With this one, I was just like, this can't be it. Just so I just convinced myself I wasn't even in labour. It was that different.
So in reflection, okay, so you're at home and they were kind of still a bit not too hard, not too intense. You kind of felt like you were going in a bit early, but then kind of as soon as you almost got to the hospital, it kind of turned on from the car onwards by the sounds.
Yeah, so I think
got way more intense.
Got out of the car and I think maybe standing up again, walking.
Yes.
All the way in, coping, checked myself in. Then I had this huge, minute and a half, really strong, that one.
Yes.
And then at the end, I was still that's okay. Walked in and then it was on. And I think we've talked about it with the midwives. I think I didn't relax. It's I didn't let it happen until I got there.
I was wondering that.
And she's it must have been once you got there, you're you could just let go.
Let go.
And I think a lot of it was to do with, I think I really wanted Patty to be home. Yes. And see us, and then his auntie come up and did dinner and bedtime, which isn't that out of his norm.
This is the auntie that does the hospital stuff, is that right?
Yeah, she works at the hospital.
Yeah.
So she lives downstairs. So he's really comfortable with her. It was
so good.
She could just be at home. So I think mentally I was Patty's home. Yeah, I can do this now. She's safe. Then, just got in and I definitely just went into transition pretty much.
Absolutely.
Well, they said that was probably my active labour, but it was just 20 minutes. So, we got it there at 6:20 and she was born at 6:48.
Isn't that incredible? Because, sorry, when you first got there as well, no, they didn't do a vaginal exam, did they?
She's so good. She just watched me. She just watched me transition, watch probably what it looks like your baby descending and was like, you need to take your pants off. And then she just looked under and she's like, yep, there's the head.
I wonder what triggered her to know all of a sudden. I'd be so curious to hear that. I see Sarah at the hospital. I'll have to tell her next time that you're on the podcast again. She'd be pumped.
Yeah, so it'd be interesting. I just, like, her skills are unbelievable.
Incredible.
Just even the way she could cue me out of when my contraction was leaving, how many breaths I had left.
Yes.
To the, like, second. I was like, how do you know when they're going to end?
Impressive.
And she'd just be like, 5 more breaths, 4 more breaths. Like, lean into it. Squat, breathe down. So I don't know if it happened quicker because I was just doing those few things, or my body just relaxed as soon as I got there and was ready.
What a queen.
Yeah, she was, amazing.
Did you know she's doing the home birth team now?
Yes. That's amazing.
Would you consider?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll see. We just went on a flight with 2 kids and that felt like a lot. I was like, where does the third fit here? Never going on a holiday again if we have a third kid, so they're still on the fence.
Yeah, okay, so you're not too sure if you're having a third.
Yeah, it's funny. As soon as I had Winnie, I was like, I've got to do that again.
Yeah.
But I think the practicality when they get older and you've got 2, one each is plenty. So
Yes. Valid. Oh, my God. What an incredible experience. So anterior, in comparison to posterior last time, much more able to use your tools and so much quicker.
So much quicker. So probably I had my stretch and sweep that morning at about 8 a.m. and then early labour. And then, she was born at 6:48. So
oh, my God.
About, what's that, 10 hours. But I would say 8 of them were relaxed at home. And it was just that last, pretty much the hospital bit was the only intense bit. And then, we got up on the bed and then we're just cuddling, just couldn't believe she was here. And she's like, okay, now this is your bit you hate. And I was like, they had to check to see if I had any tears. And I only had one tiny little, first-degree tear and didn't need any stitches.
No stitches. Oh.
And it was the difference. They were like, obviously do all their other checks. Me and Bub all good. Had my shower and all of that really quick.
Yes.
And then they just all leave you alone. I was like, last time I was on the bed for like an hour while they waiting for obstetricians to come, it was a really long time. And it just felt so surreal that we'd been there for like 20 minutes, had our baby, had our cuddles. Like I'd had a shower, Paul had his cuddles. We were learning to like feed and stuff at the start. But pretty much like no one in the room. And then they just come in and out. And because I was with the MGP and we were both really well, we were, scheduled to go home 4 hours later.
I was going to ask that, so you didn't stay overnight?
No, and the weirdest thing is I think because she came out so quick when we got there, we got to hospital at 6 and we were at home by 11 p.m. And my sister-in-law was just like, what the hell, you just left? Like, you just left and you're coming home with a baby. It was so... Now I look back, it was nearly like it just felt so surreal.
It would have.
The whole thing was so surreal.
It would have.
Just coming home, I felt like I just left and then come home with a baby.
Yes.
And they just sleep in their own bed.
It's like just pop out to the shops and you come back with a baby and a deflated belly.
Pretty much. And then Paddy's just gone to sleep and he woke up and I was home. Like, he didn't even know that.
Amazing.
And it was funny. I didn't want to ruin, I just didn't know how I'd react. So the next morning we helped him get ready for daycare, but we just she was asleep just in our room.
Yes.
We'll introduce him when he comes home from daycare. But even for their little brains, he didn't even really know I left.
Yes, so true.
He's nothing in his world had changed except when he got home from daycare, he had a little baby sister.
And he just didn't even notice that your belly was all of a sudden gone. Gosh, that's so funny.
I know, maybe because I still had a little, and a jumper and stuff.
Yes.
But, he didn't fully register.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, so.
Isn't that incredible? Okay, so before we continue on for a moment, was your pelvic girdle pain, how was that through that pregnancy?
Really good. So I was managing it with strengthening, but it wasn't until I come to yoga, the double, the stretching and opening up, especially all my groin muscles and my hip flexors helps so much. And then I think it was 36 weeks, hadn't barely noticed it. I went for a big walk with the dog and that's when I was like, okay, walking is something that aggravates it. And I was doing that a lot more in my first pregnancy. I chilled out a bit on my second. Do you want me to grab that?
By the way, I don't mind her playing with it at all.
Let's not break this.
I don't want her to
knock herself
out. Yeah, so I can easily shove that just on the desk.
You can play with the bag.
Yeah, there you go. Some nice big straps. Oh, wow.
So, yeah, I think, and then it would flare up and then I'd come back to yoga and do my stretches and I'd be like, reset it a bit. And I was getting acupuncture from 35 weeks.
Amazing.
And they do a lot around your hips if you're having issues. And that was also really helping.
Fantastic.
So I kept it at bay. It kind of come back right at the end there, but it didn't bother me nearly.
Yes.
I just had to, I wanted to go for walks, but I was like, look, I'll just do a few laps of a park close to my car, and as soon as it flares up.
Yes.
Had a pregnancy belt. Just had a few more things in place. So
yes. I do recall actually the time that you realised that the dog flared it up, which isn't rare. I've had a few mamas have that where it's like the pulling on the one side, it really just throws the whole body out of whack. And I think, that is really good to know if, especially, you're quite prone to having pelvic girdle pain, or if you're experiencing pelvic girdle pain and you don't know what's causing it, walking your dog can be really triggering to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I just had to take it easy.
Oh, fantastic.
I think because it was winter and, those morning walks, they're so nice, but I was just like, probably a bit, I'd stick to a really flat path and wouldn't go as far, and I'd go a bit slower. And
good on you.
Had nowhere to be on mat leave, so it was quite nice.
Heck yeah. Absolutely. So then, how'd you go with breastfeeding?
Yeah, Winnie, she was tricky. So I think Paddy was amazing. He just knew what to do, big boy. Really strong.
And you had plenty of milk with him, hey?
Yeah, plenty of milk. Yeah. Plenty of milk again with her. So when she was born, because she came out so fast, she was actually really quite mucusy.
Yes.
So we noticed pretty much, I was a bit like, what's this? She was really snuffly. Yeah. So I think she didn't really get that good squeeze and ability to clear out, and she was still in her sack right till the end. Mm-hmm. So we noticed she was a bit just congested, yeah. And even she had one of those block ducts.
Ah, yes.
She just seemed a bit congested all over and so puffy, and just, you're like, you poor thing. I just feel like you were just in water, you haven't had a break out of the water yet.
Yeah.
So we noticed on the second night too, she was really struggling to breathe and suck, and I wasn't concerned about her breathing, but I noticed she was having a hard time latching. So I kind of put it down towards the congestion. And then we kind of got there, she was doing really well. And then my milk came in really quick. I think it was not even 48 hours, and I could feel it. Pretty much after 24 hours, I was like, oh, it started.
Yeah.
And by that night, my boobs were just, rock hard. And I wasn't able to shape my nipple because there was so much milk, and I couldn't even get anything off.
Yeah.
So once they were those hard balloons, she had the hardest time latching. And that was really stressful because she was so hungry, and it was 30 minutes of me trying to feed her, and you're just at home and you're just kind of thank God, this is my second.
Yes.
And then anyway, so I had nipple shields because I had damaged nipples with Paddy. So I just had them in my toolkit, and I was like,
perfect.
Let's just get them on. She took to them really well. Fed like a champ. Everyone was happy.
Perfect.
And the next day I had a midwife visit, and she's like, oh, she's feeding really well. I was like, I've got the shield on. She's like, that's all right. Let's see what's going on. I was like, I can't figure it out. So they had a good look for tongue ties. Her mouth was fine. She looked really good. When she got the sucking motion, she was good. It was just she wasn't strong enough to draw that nipple right back and hang on to it. And I think a bit of her personality, she'd just give up. She'd be like,
and she's too hard.
And she'd just look at me not even cry about it or anything. She's like, yeah, no, not into it. So, we're on the nipple.
Do you think that was because your boobs were so hard, or was that even just in general when they weren't?
Yeah, I think they were so hard. She hadn't had time to really draw them out yet. A bit of her temperament was a bit too hard, can't be bothered.
Yes.
Had plenty of milk, so I wasn't worried about that because that came in really quick. And then the nipple shields were easy. So then it was just this battle of trying to get her. I even went to an LC. She's like, I can't see anything. Turn this in. Just for peace of mind. But they were all reassuring. They're like, she'll probably just need to get a bit bigger and stronger. And then at about 5 weeks, sometimes we could not use them, but it wasn't consistent. And then at 5 weeks, she just flicked a switch and
amazing.
I just put her on one day and she just drew it straight back and it was on. And I was like, okay. But then we had a lot more, I had a lot more, I've had mastitis, never had that with my first. So it was about when we transitioned from the shields to then just no shields. I got
How many weeks was that?
5 or 6 weeks.
Yeah, okay.
And that was pretty intense. Like, that was the full chills, sweats, antibiotics.
Yeah.
Got onto it really quick.
No hospital, just at home. Yeah.
At home, both breasts, which is, like, really uncommon.
Oh, wow. That is uncommon.
She was doing a lot of cluster feeding, I think because the shields, maybe she wasn't getting what she needed. Like, it took longer. So she was doing heaps of cluster feeding. Then when she went to the nipple, that stopped. And then I think my boobs were still making a lot of, like, they just couldn't figure it out. Yes. And then we've had a bit of a journey. Like, I've had a lot of blocked ducts and stuff along the way. But interesting enough, again, I went to LCs. I'm like, what's going on? They're like, latch looks fine. But I think it's a symptom for me when I'm really run down.
Yeah, getting a blocked duct.
Yeah. Like, not enough rest, probably dehydrated, like not staying on top of my food and diet. And now it's happened a couple of times when I've been really run down and I'm like, oop, these are really sore. I can confidently say it is just a part of my body's immune response, I think.
Amazing.
But at the time I was like, is she not draining them properly? Am I swapping sides too much? Is there latch off? But all of that was fine. And I just have more of an oversupply, I think, as well.
Yes. Isn't that fascinating? I love that you brought up that point because I think that's such a fantastic point of she was struggling, it was hard, she wasn't drawing back, whatever it was, and then all of a sudden she just decided to do it properly. Yeah. And I feel like babies just do that. They just all of a sudden decide, and you'll do the same thing over and over and over again, and then all of a sudden they'll just decide to do it properly. And you just got to keep trying if you want to, but if it's important to you, you just got to keep trying, and they'll almost always decide.
Me, I'm grateful she was my second because it was really, with the shields and stuff, it was actually super easy. Had in my head though, I was like, got to get rid of these, which, whatever. It's not that big of an intervention. Inconvenient if you have to wash you just rinse them. It's
or
more
if you're out more so, I think.
It's more just remembering to have them and then putting it on when you're trying to balance a floppy newborn. You need 2 hands to put on. It is a bit more challenging. But in the big grand scheme of things.
And if you're at a cafe or something, you'd have to get your whole boob out.
Yeah, pretty much. And you just have to not care.
Yes.
Because once they're on, they're really, you can't see them.
Yeah.
But I was very much I just wanted to get rid of it ASAP. But, and to be fair, you're not out that much in the first 6 weeks. But I had been. But
yes. But if you were to keep them, I guess, some people keep them for ever, 6 months, 9 months.
I know a few friends, and I think it's so easy that they're nearly too scared to not have, it's a safety blanket. So, worked fast. We got off them. Few block ducts here and there, but like I said, that's just me being a rundown mama too.
Yes.
Not as much family support around. But and I'm so grateful it was my second because I think I just persevered because I knew it was something I really enjoyed doing with Paddy and I really wanted for us. I just had I had the confidence and experience that I'd done it before.
Yes.
Where I think if that was my first, that would have been really hard to keep persevering through some of it.
I agree.
So we're very lucky. She got the hang of it and she's still going strong and loves it. Now we're just trying to get some more food into her.
So good. Actual food, solids.
Yeah.
Do you want to go into that actually? May as well. We're 9 months, we're here.
Oh, I was going to talk on my pelvic floor stuff.
Yeah.
The difference even in that.
Absolutely. And the pelvic girdle pain, because I know you mentioned last time you had that postnatal pelvic girdle pain.
Yeah, so I still definitely had a tiny bit, but nowhere near as severe.
Amazing.
And then I don't know if it was because I didn't physically in the pushing stage push with my whole body. She just my body did it. And then because I didn't have any tears or injuries down there, so I went back at postpartum, had a little tiny bit of heaviness, but only for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Went and saw my pelvic floor physio who had seen me with Paddy, and she was just oh my God, it's so good.
Oh my God.
And it was just such a relief because all the work I'd done, plus the birth I'd had, a bit of luck there as well. Mm-hmm. Things are looking really good.
Amazing.
And then she's come back at 12 weeks, and she was just you can go back to basketball soon. I was kind of I'm not quite ready. But started getting back to basketball at 4 weeks, 4 months.
Oh, fantastic.
And yeah, it was just such a different experience. And I was so lucky because that wasn't even a focus. The breastfeeding was.
Yes.
Whereas last time, breastfeeding was not an issue, but my pelvic floor was more the focus. So
interesting.
Kind of reversed there. But
so what did you do to rejuvenate your pelvic floor after birth?
So I think I started a bit earlier doing some pelvic floor, like really gentle activation.
Great.
I did a lot of rest, like more. So my parents came up for 2 weeks and I didn't lift a finger. It was so nice.
So good.
She was a big contact napper, so I just spent a lot of time working on feeding, sitting, lying, and really helping her get that. And then she'd just sleep on me, and then everyone else was doing lots of the jobs around the house that I probably was doing too much last time.
Yeah.
I just took it so easy on the walks. Like, we'd go out, but I wouldn't go for a big walk. We'd just get fresh air.
Yes.
And I just did that until probably like 4 to 6 weeks. And
fantastic.
then I just really looked after it this time. Like,
good job.
Even though I felt good, I was like, nope, I felt good last time and I probably went out too early. And
yes.
Because you want to get out. But
yes.
Yeah, so I just took it really easy, was more diligent with my pelvic floor exercises. But I think it was all the work I did pregnancy as well.
Yes. Definitely.
I think because I didn't have issues in my first pregnancy, it wasn't on my mind.
Radar.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so valid. That's interesting. And I think a good note there is that even for your pelvic floor, if you imagine it's the bowl of the pelvis, it's the floor of the pelvis, even just sitting up or standing up is putting pressure on it. When we are laying down, there's so much less pressure.
I mean, it's so good.
So good. Hey, babes. Hey. So much less pressure on that pelvic floor. So in that early postpartum phase when you're just laying flat or on your side or whatever, it is that in itself is really healing.
Yeah. And I think just being really aware and safer this time all helped and contributed, even though you're still having to lift a toddler and do all this stuff.
Were you? Yeah.
Yeah, like as much. I try not to, but at the end of the day, they're still 2.
What was that? I thought you were choking for a second.
Yeah, they're still 2 and still need your, like, mum.
Yes.
Cuddles and lift into the cot and in the car seats. Like, I tried to avoid where I could, but you still have to do that stuff.
Yes.
But yeah, maybe from carrying him my whole pregnancy, my body was kind of just used to it. So
yes. So you were able to carry him through your pregnancy, and that was fine for your pelvic floor and your pelvic girdle pain and stuff.
So I tried to carry him more until my bump got too big. I tried to carry him like centre or like on my front.
Yes.
Like
great.
But then, I still kind of went to the side once my bump got in the way. And he was a pretty active, like mobile. Have you had enough, Winnie?
Can I get you anything? Her water or anything?
Do you want your water? Maybe the phone.
Yeah.
We'll just give her a screen.
Absolutely. Oh, wow.
Is this? So then, I think you build the stamina. Yes. He walked a lot and he was okay in the pram and didn't have to carry him too much. But yeah, it's still something you just have to do, and your physios are so good with that. They're like, minimise it, but it's just part of your life. Like, you just got to do it.
You got to understand it, yeah.
Yeah, but no, I never, through my pregnancy, like, I felt really good through that as well. So
good.
It feels like such a turnaround from my first one.
Such a different experience in general.
Yeah.
Another great point that I wanted to point out about your birth with Winnie was the fact that when she was moving down, I felt like from the sounds of it, you were quite intuitive with when you pushed and when you almost knew that you needed to hold her up a little bit, slow it down to really reduce that tearing. And I think that's so intuitive.
Yeah, and I think I could feel it coming really fast, and I knew because I was in that kind of vertical gravity position, and I think because Patty came out in one go, I was like, I do not want that to happen again.
Right.
And Sarah she was mentioning, she's like, looks like you're holding back a bit. And I was like, yeah, I think I just had to slow that one down.
Yes.
Plus, there's a bit of you like, oh, I don't really want to push, like that hurts as well.
Yes.
So I think there was a bit of a combo, but yeah, it worked in my favour. Yes. You were just ready to be here.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, it was like your dream birth, and it is funny. It's funny now I've had the 2. I'm like, I don't know if I'd do a posterior again. Even though I did it and I would try and do it again. But yeah, just the difference.
You'd just be salty. I could just imagine that whole birth. You'd be like, fucking this.
Yeah, I know what this is. I know what I'm in for. But no, your hormones would take over and you drive. But yeah, it's just funny after you've had both. You're like, oh my God, I can't believe I got through that first one.
Absolutely.
I didn't know any different. I actually think if it was the other way around, I probably wouldn't have got through the posterior one. Which is funny.
But it's cool to know that because I remember in pregnancy we were thinking, I think your pelvis is just the type of shape that has to start posterior, like on the right side, go posterior and around. And obviously that wasn't actually the case. And I think it's cool that all your space creation through yoga and stuff in pregnancy and you're laying on your left side really helped with
every chance I got. Like every time I would lay on the couch, it would only be on my left. And I'd try and go to bed on my left, like you move when you sleep, but I'd always start on my left. And even I think in my first I was maybe a little bit naughty. I'd always kind of lounge back.
Yes.
Whereas I was like, nope, none of lounging. And then towards the end, I get on my birth ball, so I was just moving a bit more. Yes. Just like I was a bit more proactive and things. That's because I knew more.
Yes.
And I did notice, like I said, Paddy kind of got stuck on that right side, and I don't know if it was my first pregnancy, so everything was a bit tighter, less space. He was a little bit longer.
Yes.
Don't know if his long limbs just got curled up in that space.
Yes.
Whereas to the last minute, I could feel her still changing sides. Like she was just like a little surprise basket. You never knew any check that I had where she was going to be lying. She'd always move.
Amazing.
And I was like, well, second pregnancy probably had a bit more room. She was a smidgy bit smaller, so.
And you were creating space.
And I was creating more
so much more space.
I could tell, even with like your downward dogs, when you first start doing, they're quite uncomfortable. Like just kind of, you're like, I'm not in pain, but it's just like that sensation's really tight.
Yeah.
And then just moving through that. And then as you do it more, you're like, it's just got so much more mobility and there's no pain there. It just works really well.
It's incredible, hey. It's incredible. Okay. What about let's touch on the transition to solids. How are you going with that? What's your thoughts, like, with how you're doing that?
Well, she's just a bit fussy. So we've had, I don't know, you kind of, like, Paddy's just been... loves the boob, love the bottle, love whatever's in the bottle, at whatever temperature. Like, not fussy. You put anything in it and he'd drink it. She's been funny with the bottle. And then we started solids and, like, her gag reflex, anything pureed, she was just, like, hated it for ages. So then we just kind of went to baby-led weaning really early, which suits her because she likes to have control. I think she likes the textures of different things rather than, like, that pureed kind of gag. Yeah, she just hated it. But now she is, like, every time she gets a tooth, she's very much, like, goes off her food again and we've got to start again. And we just travelled. She was really distracted, a bit out of it. And I was just saying, like, you feed a lot. So I think she's always, like, topped up with milk. So all that. Whereas Paddy, like, loved his food and was really into it and straight into the solids. So, it's been a different experience again, but she's getting there slowly. I think it's hard to find time to do it when she's not distracted by her siblings and having good food on hand all the time and stuff. Whereas you're kind of like, oh, crap, you haven't eaten today.
Yeah.
Right now you're like, you haven't eaten today.
What do you reckon? She's done?
I think she's
done. Over it.
I think she's hot. She needs a nap.
That's all right, babes.
Probably this food. I haven't given her that.
Well, you were so good. I feel like we got that birth story out really well. We got all the important bits.
We did.
Which is fantastic. Oh, thanks so much for jumping on the pod,
Thanks for having me again.
Thanks you. Bye. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate you being here. If you enjoyed this podcast, I would absolutely love if you shared with someone else who would benefit from this information or on your social stories. If you are pregnant right now with no idea where to start and you are inundated with an abundance of information, our free 14-day pregnancy preparation short course is for you. There is a plethora of pregnancy meditations, pregnancy yoga flows, educational talks, physical movement videos, all to prepare for birth that you can access for free right now. The link is in the show notes. Now, if you are absolutely loving this podcast and the type of information we share, but you are not quite in the pregnancy or birth realm yet, I have some news for you that you are going to want to know. We have reached out to a bunch of the best preconception, pregnancy, and birth professionals to accumulate numerous tangible skills, tips, and advice to be sent straight to your inbox. If you would like to receive these fortnightly, then sign up on the newsletter link below. Talk to you soon.